What is up, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the 3&D here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Make sure you hit subscribe below and follow our socials at the 3&D ETB and at ETB Network. On tonight's episode, we got a jam-packed slate. LeBron reached 40,000 points as he's the all-time record holder in NBA history. We're going to talk about the Knicks for a little bit. Are they slipping a little bit due to injuries? Some more injury news, some KG and Paul Pierce stuff going on. Caitlin Clark breaks the all-time college basketball record. And then conference tournaments also begin this week. We'll go over each of the conferences that begin their tournaments this week. One in particular that has a crazy bracket. And then again, the top college games of the week. So I hope everybody's doing well. This episode is presented by Wolf Spreads. Are you looking to get involved in the action while rooting for your favorite team? Have you ever had a friendly debate on who can pick more games correctly? Does all this talk about parlays, lines, and over-unders make your head spin, and you want to learn more about the sports betting hoopla? Gamble with us and come check out Wolf Spreads. We're running a sports betting competition completely free on the Wolf Spreads app. Here's how it works. Everybody gets $2,000 fantasy dollars. That's fake money to bet on the action. Whoever can profit most with their 2K bankroll wins. Wolf Spreads has competitions available for the NBA, MLB, NHL, and college football and basketball. Put fantasy dollars on the over-under, the money line, or the spreads, competing for bragging rights with your fellow players while having additional fun with watching sports and not risk losing your house in the process. Wolf Spreads, sports betting for friends who love the action. So we're joining with Wolf Spreads. They've been a great partner so far, so to everybody check that out. So to lead things off for the show, we'll jump right into a lot of LeBron James news. So LeBron becomes the first ever player to reach 40,000 points in NBA history. Obviously, earlier in the season, we saw he was able to beat Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record of over 38,000 points for his career. He ended up going even higher and surpassed 40,000 points for his career. So that was in the game this past Saturday. So just adds to LeBron's legacy. Another great milestone. Everybody kind of saw this coming after he reached 38,000 earlier in the season. It was just a matter of time before he reached 40,000. Do not think he's going to ever reach 50,000. We'll see where his career kind of leads to after this season, but so much talk about him throughout the 40,000 point streak, basically, and everything that kind of went with it. Many people kind of arguing about who's the greatest of all time. This, once again, will always get brought up every single time that LeBron James' name is mentioned, pretty much. And jumping in from that on Kevin Garnett's podcast, the KG and Paul Pierce both accused LeBron of steroid use. It was a kind of an interesting poll. We'll play the audio for you right now, but KG was basically talking about him and Bronny and how a one-on-one between the two would go, and he incited something kind of interesting. So take a listen.
Bronny get a bucket on Bron right now?
Yeah, he can get a bucket on Bron right now.
Nope.
Yeah, he can get a bucket.
No way. Nope.
Nah, he can get a bucket on his dad right
averaging
now.
25.
No, I didn't say he ain't. I don't care what he's doing, but he ain't sliding, playing at that on defensive level.
25. Nah. Lord, 25. Lord, he dunking? He's still dunking the ball with.
I'm saying that Bronny can get a bucket on Bron.
I'm saying he can't. One rollout, get a bucket.
3 dribbles?
No way.
I'm talking about. He can get a bucket on him.
No.
Man, come on. That little dude explosive, bro.
He is, but you seen his dad? His dad on that balcony.
Yeah,
he on that new juice.
He ain't sliding like he used to.
Man, bro.
So to many fans, you wouldn't exactly know what he was talking about, but Kevin Garnett quickly mentioned Balco, which is a PED. MLB fans would be more accustomed to with the name of that. It's a PED well known to increase strength, all that kind of stuff during the home run era in baseball. So whether it was a playful, kind of talk between Kevin Garnett. First of all, the whole argument was kind of like weird. The Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce argument about if Bronny could score on LeBron. Like, first of all, who really cares if he could score a basket on his dad? He might be able to, he might not be able to. Couldn't care less. I mean, Bronny also, there's been plenty of talk about him and his future in the NBA. If he'll come out this season, he had a terrible year for USC in a completely horrible season for USC basketball. That was a complete disaster. That team was supposed to be a national top 25 team, and they were well under 500. They were well under 500 in the final year of Pac-12 play. They have a long ways to go, but Kevin Garnett basically accused LeBron of using steroids, and the interesting thing is he being serious? Does he actually know something about Balco use in the NBA? I mean, would definitely go to explain his longevity throughout his career and the amount of muscle he's been able to keep on throughout his career and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to be one, if you watch the show even a decent amount, you know that I'm a Michael Jordan guy, and Michael Jordan, in my mind, is the best player of all time. So I'm not going to try to sit up here and sound like a sore Michael Jordan fan or something like that and accuse him of steroid use and stuff when there's been no talk about that. I just think that clip is pretty interesting. And I don't know what it means. Could easily just be Kevin Garnett saying like, oh yeah, he's got to be on steroids since like he's still putting up the numbers he's putting up and he's still as dominant as he was like in his 20s and all that kind of stuff. So makes things a little bit interesting to think about. But yeah, we're not really sure exactly what that was, but Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, their podcast, if you've never listened to it, it's a very interesting listen. So definitely check that out if you're a big NBA fan. It's some good stuff. So jumping over from LeBron, we got some injury news. Trae Young went down this past week. So Trae Young ended up having surgery on his hand. He's going to miss extended time for the Atlanta Hawks. Could potentially be out for the season. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks as of right now. He had to have surgery on a broken hand, so that's never something that's going to go by pretty smoothly. But the Hawks have pretty much waved a white flag on the season anyway. There's a possibility that they could end up getting a play-in spot. As things sit right now, they're actually in the 10th spot, and they're 2 games ahead of the Brooklyn Nets, but they're 26-34. They have not had a good season. They've been very, very disappointing throughout the entire year. Trae Young has had a very good season, though. Again, a lot of people are already kind of speculating about his future with the Atlanta Hawks. If Atlanta is going to look to try to rebuild, maybe trade him and try to get a bunch for him. He's under contract for a while. They've asked him about it. He's said that he's fully invested in trying to win in Atlanta and stay with the Hawks for the time being. One interesting thing that I saw online that isn't really a rumor that anybody's talking about, Trae Young to the San Antonio Spurs is a very interesting one to give Victor basically a play another piece around him to try to create a competitor with the Spurs. Because, I mean, we've seen all season, Victor Wembanyama's had a fantastic rookie season. He has quite literally lived up to all the hype that they gave him. He's been a superb player, and he's a cheat code. He's only going to get better. So he's going to be a perennial all-star. He's going to be one of the all-time greats, it looks like. So the Spurs are already probably having internal discussions on how they can acquire a second superstar, or they're going to have a top pick again this year. Will the guy that they draft possibly be a second superstar? Because none of the guys on their team are going to be star players. They've had a lot of top picks over the last few years since they've had bad seasons, but they've drafted role players pretty much. Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Malachi Branham. They're all good players and guys you need to have come off the bench for a championship level team, but nothing more than that. There's not one guy who's broken out this season to be like that second piece behind Victor. So as of right now, the Spurs are still rebuilding, and they're rebuilding really only around Wemby, in my opinion. I don't think that anyone else has proven enough to be able to, kind of like hold the mantle and be another piece that the team can build around. So they definitely could possibly start to look for a trade. They've accumulated a lot of first-round picks. They have a lot of young talent with the first-round picks that they've drafted over the years. And Trae Young is an interesting one because he plays great with dominant big men. He's a great pick-and-roll player. That's why Clint Capella has had a fantastic seasons every year that Trae Young has been on them. And Trae Young averages almost 10 assists a game practically every single season because of his pick-and-roll presence. So he could be a perfect kind of point guard to pair around Wembanyama, be a second scorer too. A good 3-point shooter. So interesting one to think about. But regardless, as of right now, he's an Atlanta Hawk, and the Hawks, they are slipping. They're slipping in the standings. So at the very best, they're going to be a play-in team, probably going to finish well under 500 this season. They pretty much waved the white flag on the year. And jumping from that to a team who has not waved the white flag, but a team that is starting to get in danger is the New York Knicks. So the Knicks have been on a little bit of a slide recently, mainly due to the injuries of OG Anunoby and Julius Randle, who both haven't played in well over a month now. Anunoby was absolutely stellar the second they traded for him, made that trade with Toronto. He was a perfect piece for this team, and he's been hurt for well over a month now. Julius Randle has also been hurt for a long time after dislocating his shoulder, and those are two guys that they're missing badly right now, and they've been starting to get on a slide. So earlier when the two of them first went down, the team had as good of a record as 33-18. Right now they're 35-25. They're only 10 games over 500. They've only won 2 of their last 9. So they're 2-7 in their last 9 games. They're going to be taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers the night of this recording, which is Sunday. They're at Cleveland. Then they'll be taking on Atlanta during the week. So they have an interesting schedule coming up. Obviously, 35-25, 60 games into the season. They have 22 remaining until the playoffs. They're still sitting at the 4 seed though in the Eastern Conference. They even though they've slid a little bit, some of the other top teams in the East have been sliding a bit. The Cavs have not been as great over the past few weeks, and neither have the 76ers. They've both been sliding a bit. So the Knicks are tied right now at 35-25 with the Philadelphia 76ers. Another big one too has been besides Anunoby and Julius Randle going down, the long-term injury to Mitchell Robinson, which happened earlier this season, and Isaiah Hartenstein being hurt and playing, but not playing great minutes over the past few weeks has definitely hurt them a lot because they've been relying on Jericho Sims a lot more. And Jericho Sims really is not a consistent NBA player, in my opinion. He really isn't that good. And I think, honestly, they've got 2 open roster spots. I would love to see them sign either a Robin Lopez. Mike Muscala got bought out, but he just signed with the Oklahoma State Thunder. That was a guy that would have been interesting for the Knicks to go after. But one of these big men I want to see, maybe Robin Lopez. I mean, I don't know how much Robin Lopez has left. He got bought out by the Bucks, wasn't even playing much for the Bucks, and nobody's touched him on the free agent market. So he may not have very much left, but I feel like they need a veteran big man, and with one of these roster spots, and especially until Robinson possibly is going to be done for the year. Hardenstein has been stepping up as starting center, has been fantastic. But if he's hurt too, you're really only relying on Jericho Sims because you also don't have Julius Randle, who's another big man for you guys, who's your 4. So that's another big loss that I think is interesting. And the news came out yesterday that they're going to sign Shake Milton for the rest of the season. Milton was with the Minnesota Timberwolves, got traded at the deadline to the Pistons, and then got bought out by the Pistons just recently. So they're going to sign him. Just another guard, though, that they're adding to their backcourt depth, adding him to Alec Burks and the rest of the guys that they have coming off the bench. I don't think that is a bad move. Shake Milton's a decent player, good shooter, can definitely add some scoring to the bench, but I really think the team needs a big man badly. And it's tough to see them sliding a little bit because they were having such a stellar season, and they were looking like before these injuries, they were looking like they were the second best team in the Eastern Conference behind the Boston Celtics. And they've fallen 4.5 games behind the Cavaliers and Bucks. and they're tied with the 76ers right now as the 4 seed. And they're only one game better than both the Heat and the Magic. So they can fall from 4 to 7 very quickly and fall into the play-in tournament because there's very few games that separate those teams. The Celtics are sitting in first place very comfortably. They're going to pretty much wrap up first place. Then the Cavaliers and Bucks are tied. Cavs are at 2, 8 games back. Bucks are at 3. And then the Knicks and the Sixers are tied at 12.5 back. So both of those teams have fallen kind of far past the Cavs and the Bucks. And then Miami Heat are 13.5 back. They're also tied with Orlando, who's sitting at the 7 right now at 13.5 back. And then the Pacers are 14 back. So there's 1.5 games that separate the Knicks at 4 and the Pacers at 8 right now. So something's got to change quickly. And these injuries are definitely hurting them. They've been lucky enough that they've been able to stick around at the 3 and 4 spots despite these losing streaks, but things could change very fast because there are very few games that separate them and the 8 seed. So they could easily fall into the play-in tournament if they don't start putting together some wins. Tonight's game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think, is going to be a big one for the Knicks to bounce back. So it'll definitely make things very interesting down the stretch for the NBA season. But that'll wrap things up for the NBA portion of the episode. Now we'll jump into plenty of college basketball, checking on Caitlin Clark again because she set another record. Caitlin Clark broke after breaking Kelsey Plum's women's college basketball scoring record a couple weeks ago. She broke Pistol Pete Maravich's all-time NCAA scoring record this past weekend. So Caitlin Clark is now the all-time leading scorer in men's and women's basketball history in the NCAA, breaking Pete Maravich's record that has stood for a long time. And Pete Maravich did it in only 3 years. He averaged about 40 points a game throughout his 3 years in college. Had a ridiculous career at LSU. And pretty insane, but Caitlin Clark has been absolutely spectacular. There's a lot of interesting things that have come out. Right before she broke this record, news came out that she wasn't going to be returning for a 5th year of eligibility. She's a senior right now for Iowa, but she gets the 5th year of eligibility due to the COVID year. She's not going to be using her grad year. She's going to be leaving women's college basketball as she's going to be graduating, and she's going to enter the WNBA draft. She's the easy pick to be the number 1 overall pick for the WNBA draft this year. The Indiana Fever right now hold the number 1 overall pick, so that it looks like that's going to be her future team. But a lot of people are a little bit up in arms, kind of wondering about some of that stuff because Caitlin Clark was making a lot of money this past year from NIL, all of the sponsorships that she's in, all that kind of stuff. And they're starting to question, with the new NIL stuff, could she be making more money in college than she'll make in the WNBA next year? That's definitely a possibility. I would have to think that she'll probably be right off the bat one of the top paid WNBA players. I know I think whoever is the leading whoever gets paid the most in the WNBA, I don't know who has the highest contract, is making around $250K or something like that. I think Caitlin Clark would jump in and make right around that just because of the name. She'll still hold on to all of her sponsorships and make a ton of money off of those. She's been in a couple of commercials they've been seeing her in. She's definitely been taking full advantage of the NIL, of all of the NIL stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't necessarily know if this is a good or bad move. She's definitely wanting to, kind of pursue other journeys now since she has made it through her 4 years of college. There's a lot of guys. This is the final year that players get that 5th year of eligibility because it happened in the 2020-2021 season that there was no fans in the stands. They gave all of the players who were playing in that season an extra year of eligibility. And so all of the seniors that are seniors now this year get a 5th year of eligibility, but everybody who's a freshman, sophomore, and junior can only play 4 years. So this is the last year of that 5th year hoopla that's been driving everybody crazy. But she's got a ton of different NIL deals, and thanks to Nick Morrison, he got me a nice little list of Caitlin Clark's NIL deals. She's got Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, Buick, Hy-Vee, H&R Block, Tops, and Shoot Away. So she's absolutely loaded right now in the amount of sponsorships that she's involved in. We saw her in, I forget what commercial. I think it was State Farm commercial. She was in a State Farm commercial just recently with Reggie Miller, and Steph Curry, I believe, was in it too. And yeah, so she's a Nike athlete too. I'm sure they came out with Sabrina Ionescu shoes. I'm sure they're going to be coming out with Caitlin Clark shoes once she hits the WNBA. So I think that, like, sure, some NIL stuff she can make a lot of money off of, but I think she's going to make a ton of money in the WNBA, and most of it is not even going to be coming from her salary. And just as I was saying that too, Arike Ogunbowale is the highest paid WNBA player right now at $241,984. So it's right around $250K, like I thought it was. She's going to be making well more than that from all of her sponsorships and stuff. So even if she makes $150 to $200K or something as her base salary in WNBA, she's going to be making a lot more than that. So I think it's a good move. She had an illustrious career, best career from any WNBA player of all time, and arguably of any college basketball player of all time. And we'll see if Iowa can win a national championship this year. I think that's just the one thing that she's missing at this point. So jumping over from that, this week is a full slate of conference tournaments beginning across men's college basketball. We've got a jam-packed slate for everybody. It's, as for the most part, what goes down is the mid-majors start their tournaments this week. They pretty much wrap them up by next weekend, and we'll start to get the first teams to punch their tickets into the tournament. And then all of the big time conferences will start next week. So we'll see the ACC, the Big 10, Big 12, all of those we'll be able to preview on next week's episode. But this week we have some of the mid majors that are going to begin. And the first one, there's a few that are starting on Tuesday, and the first one is the Atlantic Sun. So the Atlantic Sun will be beginning this upcoming week. It's going to be going off on Tuesday. And the leading team right now in the Atlantic Sun is Eastern Kentucky. They're 12-4 on the season. Stetson and Lipscomb are both tied at 11-5 in second place. And then Austin P is also there. So they Queens University is also another team who's in the Atlantic Sun. They're a brand new Division I team. Bellarmine as well is another brand new Division I team that they're further down in the standings. But Eastern Kentucky is the number 1 seed in the Atlantic Sun. This tournament starts on Tuesday, and then we will also have the Horizon League will begin on Tuesday as well. The Horizon League right now is led by the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. Oakland University is in first place at 15-5 in their conference record. Youngstown State is in second at 14-6. Green Bay and Wright State are tied at 13-7. So those are going to be the main ones. Most people are assuming Oakland, who's the number 1 seed, is going to end up winning the Horizon League. And I actually just saw something on Twitter about like a joke when Oakland plays Purdue in the round of 64 and upsets them, because Purdue ends up getting upset practically every single season. So the Horizon League will start this Tuesday. And then also starting on Tuesday, we have the Patriot League. So the Patriot League will also be tipping off on Tuesday. The first place for them is Colgate. Colgate has a very, very significant lead. They were 22-9 on the season, 16-2 in conference play. And then the next best team, 4 teams were tied at 6 games behind Colgate. Boston University, American University, Bucknell, and Lafayette were all 6 games back. So Colgate is the heavy favorite to win and make it to the tournament. Yet again, they made it last year as well. And then on Wednesday, the NEC will begin, Northeast Conference. I'm well aware of the Northeast Conference, as my alma mater plays in the Northeast Conference, Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart ended up finishing 3 games behind Central Connecticut State and Merrimack, who both were tied for first place in the NEC at 13-3. Sacred Heart was 10-6 in conference play, 3 games behind them. Then Fairleigh Dickinson, who made that big run in last year's tournament, was 9-7 this year, 15-16 overall record. Sacred Heart's overall record was 16-15 with a 10-6 conference record. But Central Connecticut State and Merrimack were the top 2 teams. Merrimack has been absolutely incredible. Both Merrimack and Sacred Heart are going to be moving into the MAC next year. They're going to be moving up a conference, but Merrimack has been insane because they're only a Division I team as of the last few years, and they joined the NEC in their first year as a Division I team, and they've been at the top of the conference every single year in basketball. So they've been completely dominant. They should have made the D2 to D1 leap a lot sooner. They've been fantastic. So that conference tournament begins Wednesday. Another one that begins Wednesday is the Ohio Valley Conference. The Ohio Valley is currently led by Little Rock. There's three teams that finished tied for first place. Little Rock, Morehead State, and UT Martin both were 14-4 on the year. Western Illinois finished 13-5, one game back. Best overall record was Morehead State. They were 23-8 on the season. So interesting odds to see who wins that conference. And then starting on Thursday, we have the Missouri Valley Conference. Indiana State has been by far the best team in the Missouri Valley Conference. They were ranked for a week during the season. They were a 25 ranked team. If you are a big college basketball fan, they have Robbie Avila, who's been kind of the talk of mid-major basketball. Absolutely dominant. Big guy that does not look like a basketball player. It's a little bit overweight with glasses. But Indiana State's been 25-5 this season, 16-3 in conference. And then Drake is right behind them at 15-4. They've been fantastic again this year. Drake has been a sneaky good basketball team over the last couple of years. They've made the tournament, won a game even, so they've definitely been an interesting one. And then the WCC will also start on Thursday. That includes St. Mary's, Gonzaga, San Francisco. So that's a pretty decent. That's probably the best conference that starts their conference tournaments this week. And then also starting on Friday, we'll have the Big South begins. So High Point was the best team in the Big South. They finished 13-3. UNC Asheville finished one game behind them, and then Gardner-Webb finished 2 games behind them. So those are the best teams. High Point was by far the best team, and they're by far the favorite to win the Big South and make it to the NCAA tournament. And then also starting on Friday, we have the CAA, the Coastal Athletic Association. They are led by Charleston, who made the tournament last year and was a sneaky team, a team that was right around the top 25 for a little bit. They were 24-7 this year, 15-3 in conference play. Drexel finished 2 games behind them. Hofstra and UNC Wilmington finished 3 games behind them. So Charleston ends up being the by far favorite. And then the final conference that begins their conference tournaments this week is another Friday one. The SoCon will begin. The SoCon is the Southern Conference, and they're led by Samford. They're led by the Samford Bulldogs, and UNC Greensboro is in second place at 3 games back, and Chattanooga is also tied for second place in 3 games back. But Samford is by far the favorite. They're 26-5 this season, 15-3 in conference play. So those are the conference tournaments that are going to be beginning this week. They'll be all over ESPN. It'll be plenty of college basketball to watch. We'll have a lot of conference tournament finals next weekend. So definitely some exciting stuff that I'm looking forward to. And last but not least, the WCC bracket. So this one gets its own little segment because this is by far the best conference tournament that's going to be going down this week, the WCC. But once again, the WCC wins dumbest bracket in college basketball history. Their bracket is absolutely insane. The first place team, St. Mary's, who finished with 1 loss in conference play because they lost to Gonzaga yesterday, but they were undefeated in conference play before that. The 1 and 2 seeds in the WCC get 3 buys in the tournament. So this is exactly how the WCC tournament is constructed. The first round is only 1 game. Number 8 seed Pepperdine versus number 9 seed versus whoever the number 9 seed is. And then the second round consists of 2 games, which is Portland versus Loyola Marymount. And then the other game is San Diego versus the winner of the Pepperdine game. Then the third round is also 2 games. Santa Clara, who got 2 byes as the 4 seed, and San Francisco, who got 2 byes as the 3 seed, they play those winners. And then the 4th round is the semifinals. And St. Mary's and Gonzaga both automatically make it to the semifinals. They play the winner of the Santa Clara versus whoever they play game, and San Francisco versus whoever they play. So basically, if you finish, not only is the WCC top loaded in talent, it's always been Gonzaga, St. Mary's, BYU, and then everybody else. San Francisco is sometimes decent. Santa Clara is sometimes decent, but everyone else is usually not that great in the conference. Gonzaga is always a nationally ranked team. St. Mary's is always a nationally ranked team. BYU's jumped to the Big 12 this year, so they're not even in the WCC anymore. But so now it's just St. Mary's and Gonzaga are going to be the 1 and 2 every single season. They're by far the 2 best teams in the conference. And if you make it, and if you finish as the 1 or 2 seed in the WCC, you automatically make it to the semifinals, and you get 3 byes in the first 3 rounds of the tournament. It's absolutely crazy. So if a team like Pepperdine, who's the 8th seed in the tournament, wants to win the tournament, they have to beat the 9 seed, then they have to go beat San Diego, then they have to go beat Santa Clara, and then they have to go beat a well-rested St. Mary's team that automatically makes it to the semifinals, and then they have to win the finals to win it all. And all St. Mary's has to do as the number 1 seed is get a sit back, relax, gets 3 byes, 3 days off, and then they play whoever wins 3 games, basically. Whoever makes it to them, and all they have to do is win 2 games, and then they win the WCC tournament. So if you haven't seen the WCC bracket, look it up. It's the same every year. This is how the WCC bracket is always configured. The top 2 teams always automatically make it to the semifinals, despite there being 5 rounds in the entire tournament. It's a terribly constructed tournament. And the crazy thing about it is there's only 9 teams in the conference. Now that BYU left, there used to be 10. There's only 9 teams in the conference. They could easily make a typical 1 through 8 bracket and have the 8 and 9 team play a play-in, basically, to see who gets the 8th seed. And then everybody's at even pace. You play a 1 versus 8, a 4 versus 5, 2 versus 7, and 3 versus 6. And that would make the most sense. But they almost purposely do this because they basically, not only is it a definite that Gonzaga and St. Mary's are going to just roll over the competition like they always do because they're so much better than anyone else in the conference, they make it that much easier by giving them so much rest and letting them automatically make it to the semifinals. So they only have to win 2 games to be the conference champions. So it's a very uncompetitive conference tournament. The layout is absolutely ridiculous. If you go on Twitter, you can see a lot of college basketball fans roasting it. And since I first saw it several years ago, I've thought it was stupid ever since. And they do it, and they continue to do it every year. They never change the tournament bracket. So it's interesting. So St. Mary's and Gonzaga are both top 25 teams this week. They're always consistently great, and you can bank on those 2 playing in the WCC championship Saturday night at 6:00. That's pretty much at this point. Not Saturday night, next Tuesday night, I should say, at 6:00. That's pretty much a given. It's going to be St. Mary's versus Gonzaga, just the way it's constructed. Nobody else really has a shot. And those are the only 2 teams from the tournament, besides possibly San Francisco, that are actually going to make the NCAA tournament anyway. So very, very weird, but that's just the way the WCC does things. So be interesting to see how that goes. And to wrap things up for the episode, we'll be jumping into the top college games of the week, as we always do. This is the final week of conference play for the top conferences. So most teams practically only have 2 games left. On top of this, we'll also have all of the first rounds and second rounds, semifinals, and all that kind of stuff of the mid-major tournaments too. I didn't include those because, obviously we don't know who's going to be playing in those games, but those games will be taking place like this weekend and stuff. So the first one up, number 2 Purdue is at number 13 Illinois, Tuesday night at 7:00 on Peacock. So Purdue, 26-3 on the season. They're 15-3 in conference play. As of right now, Joe Lunardi has them as the number 1 overall seed in college basketball for March Madness. This past week they beat Michigan State. They're also going to be playing Wisconsin this Sunday. They'll also be playing Wisconsin after this as their last game on Sunday. So, so they only have 2 games left: Illinois and Wisconsin. Zach Edey right now still the favorite to win second straight Player of the Year, averaging 24 and 12. And Hayden Smith has had a very, very good season, averaging 13.1 points, 7.1 assists, and 5.9 rebounds. Illinois, on the other hand, has been sticking together. They've had a great year despite a lot of adversity, not having their best player for most of the season. They're 22-7 now on the year, 13-5 in conference play. They beat both Minnesota and Wisconsin this week, and they'll be playing Purdue this game on Tuesday, and then they finish the season against Iowa on Sunday. Terrence Shannon Jr., who's their best player, was cleared to play, averaging 22 points, 4.4 rebounds. And kind of the guy who's been the MVP of them this season is Marcus Domask. He's held the team together while Shannon was out, and while a lot of injuries plagued the team. He's averaged 16 points, 4.9 rebounds. Then also Tuesday at 7 o'clock, we have number 14 Alabama at number 24 Florida. This one's going on ESPN. Alabama 20-9 on the season. They're 12-4 in conference play this year. This past week they beat Ole Miss and lost to Tennessee on Saturday. Tennessee was kind of a given that they were going to lose that game. They will play Florida on Tuesday, and then they finish the season against Arkansas on Saturday. Alabama has had a fantastic season this year. They were kind of down and out. Not too many people projected them to be as good as they are. They're sitting at number 14 right now. They'll probably stay right around the same for this upcoming top 25. Mark Sears, the leading scorer at 20.7 points, and the Hofstra transfer Aaron Estrada, averaging 13, 5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. Florida, on the other hand, too, has had a great season. They're 20-9 on the year as well, but they're 10-6 in conference play, 2 games worse than Alabama. This past week, they beat Missouri, but they lost to South Carolina. So it'll be interesting to see if they stay in the top 25 this upcoming week. They were 24 this week. They could end up falling out. They have this game on Tuesday, and then they play Vanderbilt on Saturday to end their season. Walter Clayton Jr. has been their leading scorer at 16.9 points, 3.7 rebounds, and Zion Poland averaging 15.4 points, 5 assists. And then on Wednesday, we have another SEC showdown. Number 4 Tennessee at number 18 South Carolina, Wednesday at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Tennessee has been completely dominant all season long. They're by far the best team in the SEC. 23-6 on the season. They're now 13-3 in conference play. They're in first place in the SEC. They beat both Auburn and Alabama this week. They'll probably honestly end up moving up from the number 4 seed. They'll probably jump into the top 3, and they're projected right now to be a number 1 seed in the tournament. They'll be playing South. They got 2 tough games though to end their season this week. They have South Carolina on Wednesday, which is this game, and then they play Kentucky on Saturday, which we'll go over in a few. But Dalton Knecht has been one of the best players in the country, favorite to win SEC Player of the Year, and one of the favorites to win National Player of the Year as well, even though it'll probably go to Zach Edey, averaging 20.6 points a game. Jonas Aidoo as well, averaging 12.1 points, 7.6 rebounds, 2 blocks. And for South Carolina, they've been one of the more impressive teams in the nation. They're 24-5 this season. They're 12-4 in conference play. They beat both Texas A&M and Florida this week. So they were ranked 18 this week. They'll probably jump up a little higher. And they have this game on Wednesday, and then they take on Mississippi State to end their season on Saturday. So a tough matchup on Wednesday, but should be a pretty easy one on Saturday. Michi Johnson has been fantastic this season, averaging 14-4 for them, and BJ Mack averaging 13-5. And then also on Wednesday, we have a Big 12 matchup. We have BYU at number 8, Iowa State, Wednesday at 8 o'clock p.m. on ESPN+. BYU has had a fantastic season in their first year in the Big 12. They're 21-8 on the season, 9-7 in conference play. They won 2 games this week that are definitely going to probably put them back in the top 25. They beat Kansas, who was a top 10 team. Kansas is going to fall a lot this week. They had 2 bad losses this week. And then they beat TCU, and they'll be playing Iowa State on Wednesday, and then they finish the season against Oklahoma State on Saturday. Jackson Robinson still leads the team with 13.9 points. Spencer Johnson with 10 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. And then Iowa State, on the other hand, has been fantastic this entire year. They're 23-6. They're 23-6 on the season. They're 12-4 in conference play. They also had 2 wins this week. They beat Oklahoma and UCF. And they're on a 3-game winning streak now. Then they'll be playing BYU on Wednesday, and they finish the season against Kansas State on Saturday. Keyshawn Gilbert and Tameen Lipsey have been their 2 best players. Gilbert averaging 13.8 points, 4.6 rebounds, 4.1 assists, and Lipsey averaging 12.3 points, 5.2 assists, and 4.6 rebounds. And then what is probably going to be the best game of the week, we have the 2 top teams in the Big East going head-to-head. Number 3, UConn at number 5, Marquette. Wednesday at 8:30 on FS1. UConn has been fantastic. Are the reigning champs this year, 26-3 on the season, 16-2 in conference play. They only had 1 game this week. They beat Seton Hall, and they'll be taking on Marquette on Wednesday, and then they end the season against Providence on Saturday. Tristan Newton has been fantastic, averaging 15, 7, and 6. Cam Spencer has been great, averaging 15 and 5. And Stephon Castle is going to be a top 10 pick, averaging 10.9 points, 4.3 rebounds, 3 assists. And Marquette, on the other hand, 22-7 on the season. They're 13-5 in conference play. Had 2 good wins this week, beating Providence and Creighton. They have this game against UConn, then they end the season Saturday against Xavier. They were without Tyler Kolek and Oso Ighodaro this past weekend, and ended up losing to Creighton because of it. The Kolek averaging 15 points and 7.6 assists. Ighodaro averaging 14 points, 7.3 rebounds. Cam Johnson's become their leading scorer, though, averaging 16.1 points. And then jumping into a non-power conference, the 2 top teams in the American Conference this year, 2 of the top teams in the American Conference. Memphis at Florida Atlantic is going to be Saturday at noontime on CBS. Saturday, there's a good slate of games. Both these teams remain unranked as of right now. Memphis has a chance to be ranked this upcoming week, but they probably both will stay unranked heading into the week. Memphis 21-8 on the season, 10-6 in conference play. Their win this week, they beat East Carolina on Thursday. David Jones, their transfer from St. John's, has been incredible, averaging 21.6 points, 7.6 rebounds. Javon Quinterly, 5th-year senior, averaging 13 and 5 assists. And Naquan Tomlin, who was a transfer who got deemed eligibility mid-season, averaging 12.3 points. And then Florida Atlantic, who was in the top 25 a lot this year, but fell out over the last couple of weeks. They're 22-7 on the year, 12-4 in conference play. Still remain in first place in their conference. But they lost to Memphis last Sunday. They just played against Memphis, so this is going to be a little bit of a rematch. But this past week, they beat Tulane, and they'll be playing North Texas on Wednesday, and then Memphis on Saturday to end their season. Janelle Davis has been their best player, averaging 18 and 7, while Vlad Golden averaging 15 and 7, and Elijah Martin averaging 13.6 and 5.9. And then Saturday at 2:30, we got number 12 Creighton at Villanova. Big game for Villanova. This one's going to be on Fox. Creighton is 22-8 on the season. They're 13-6 in conference play. They beat both Seton Hall and Marquette this week, so they should jump higher than that number 12 ranking they're sitting at right now. This is going to be the last game of the season. Baylor Shireman has been one of the best players and is one of the favorites to win Big East Player of the Year, averaging 18.5 points, 8.9 rebounds. And Trey Alexander has been great too, averaging 18 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Villanova, on the other hand, is in an interesting situation. Villanova right now is 17-12 on the season. They're 10-8 in conference play. This past week, they beat both Georgetown and Providence, and they will be playing Seton Hall on Wednesday, and then they play Creighton on Saturday. Those are going to be their last 2 games before Big East tournament team. And as of right now, Joe Lombardi has them as the first team out of the tournament. So this is going to be a big week for them. They probably have to beat Seton Hall on Wednesday, and a win against Creighton here would be huge for them. So Villanova is going to be right on the bubble. Going to be interesting to see how they do it. And then another great matchup, we'll have number 7 Kansas at number 1 Houston Saturday at 4:00 on ESPN. This one's going to be a really good game. Kansas had 2 terrible losses this week. They're definitely going to fall into the double digits in rankings. Kansas 21-8 on the season, 9-7 in conference play, which is a really weird record. They're at 9-7 in Big 12 play. And they were ranked at number 7 this week. They lost to both BYU and Baylor this week. They have 2 games left. They'll be playing Kansas State on Tuesday, and then they have this game at Houston on Saturday. So a tough one right there, and they've lost 3 of their last 5. So it'll be interesting to see where Kansas is ranked this week because they had 2 bad losses. They're definitely going to fall from 7. They might fall to 14 or 15, honestly, this week because those were two pretty bad losses, especially for a team that was ranked in the top 10. Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough has still been dominant for them all year. And then Houston, this is their first year in the Big 12 as well, have been completely dominant, 26-3 on the year, 13-3 in conference play, first place in the Big 12. This past week, they beat both Cincinnati and Oklahoma. They're on a 7-game win streak, and they'll be playing UCF on Wednesday, and then they play Kansas on Saturday to end their season. Jamal Shedd, one of the favorites to win Big 12 Player of the Year, averaging 13.1 points, 6.1 assists. He hit the game winner to beat Oklahoma in a tough one on Saturday. So this is going to be a very interesting game, and Houston could really, really prove some stuff. They're sitting at number 1 in the country right now, and they're going to remain number 1 heading into this week. So they could definitely prove some stuff this week if they're able to knock off both UCF and Kansas. And then Saturday at 4 o'clock, we have number 16 Kentucky at number 4 Tennessee. Another really good game. Tennessee we just went over before, but Tennessee's got 2 tough games to end their season. Kentucky, on the other hand, though, 21-8 on the year. They're 11-5 now in conference play. They beat both Mississippi State and a really close one to Arkansas. They won this week. They'll be playing Vanderbilt on Wednesday, and then they play Tennessee on Saturday to end their season. Antonio Reeves averaging 20 points a game. Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham have been their 2 best freshmen, both potential top 10 picks as two-way players. They've both been fantastic. Kentucky's starting to get on a little bit of a roll. They should be higher than 16 this upcoming week. They might jump a couple of spots. They'll probably jump ahead of Kansas, honestly. They may jump up to 13 or 14 heading into this week, but Tennessee has been as good as advertised. And then another rivalry matchup. We have number 9 North Carolina at number 10 Duke. Saturday at 6:30. Both of these teams end their season against each other on ESPN. North Carolina is 23-6 on the season. They're 15-3 in conference play. They beat both Miami and NC State this week. They'll be playing Notre Dame on Tuesday, and then Duke on Saturday. RJ Davis averaging 21.4 points. It's been incredible for them. Baycott 14-10, and Harrison Ingram averaging 13-9. And then Duke, on the other hand, also 23-6 on the season, but 14-4 in conference play, second place in the ACC. The North Carolina and Duke have basically run away with the ACC this year. The ACC has been completely uncompetitive. Those have been the 2 best teams, and then everybody else pretty much. Miami did not have that great of a year. Virginia's been up and down. But Duke, 14-4 in conference play, beat Louisville and Virginia this past week. And they'll be playing NC State on Monday, and then they'll be playing North Carolina on Saturday in their season. Kyle Filipowski threw that huge fit about the court storming, and then went out and had a great game this past weekend. Didn't even miss any time. So in typical Duke fashion, some whining and nothing much coming from it. And the final game to watch out for this week, we have a Mountain West game, New Mexico at number 22 Utah State, Saturday at 8:30 on CBSSN. New Mexico 21-8 on the season. They're 9-7 in conference play. They've fallen a lot. They were in the top 25 for a bit, but they're definitely going to fall out of that. They're right on the cusp right now of making the tournament. There's no guarantee that they're going to make the tournament. I think that they're one of the last teams in right now. Yeah, they're in the last 4 in right now for Joe Lunardi. And yeah, they're definitely going to be sweating it out. A win against Utah State would be big, though. Utah State 24-5 on the season, 12-4 in conference play. They beat both Fresno State and Air Force this past week. They'll be playing San Jose State on Wednesday and then take on New Mexico to end their season on Saturday. So that's going to be the top college games of the week, as all of the big conferences are wrapping up the final week of their regular season before the conference tournaments begin. And we'll be checking out a bunch of mid-major conference tournaments this week. So it's definitely going to be a lot of exciting stuff heading into this week. That'll do it for another episode of the 3&D. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the Empty the Bench podcast network for another episode. Once again, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel and follow the socials at the 3&D ETB. We'll be putting out content all week in case you missed the entire episode, so make sure to check that out on our socials. Hope everyone has a great night. Make sure to check out plenty of conference championships throughout the week and play more college basketball. And make sure you like and subscribe to Empty the Bench on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a good night, everyone.